On May the 5th, 2023, we're having a lunar eclipse. It's going to be happening around the 15th degree of the sign of Scorpio. It's going to bring a energy into your sky and into the collective sky that has a lot to do with change. But what kind of change? Well, change in the global perspective, of course. The financial markets, number one, looks a little bit rocky over the next few months. Things to do with the pandemic that are quite positive, actually. The old pandemic, yeah. And in your own life, you may experience also some areas of change that bring healing, mind, body, and spirit, but through the crucible of tension. We're going to talk about how this may play out over the 6 months that follow from this lunar eclipse of May the 5th. And we're going to go to do all sign videos. So you're going to have about 5 minutes for your sign. Listen for your rising. It's more accurate usually than your sun or moon. There are exceptions, but you can listen for all three. And if you're new to my channel, let me say a few things about who I am, and then we'll go ahead and talk about the eclipse. By the way, we're talking about the general themes of the eclipse for the globe, for the world, and we're also going to talk about your sign. So you can skip ahead if you want, but I suggest you stay around to get the lay of the land for the big picture story and then go to your own sign. Okay, if you're new to my channel, I am Lori Lothian. I'm a whole sign house Hellenistic astrologer. I'm using the Western tropical zodiac, and that means that I'm not doing Indian or sidereal astrology. If you want to learn a bit about what I'm doing, you can check my description box below, see the classes I'm teaching. I have Skyreader 3.0 coming up on May the 5th. Yeah, who starts a class on an eclipse? I do, long story short. And you can join in, and it's a 7-week class. We're going to meet weekly. It's replays available, evergreen access afterward. A Facebook group for your homework. I'm there to watch over and help. And what else can I say? And a Q&A every week. Plus, you know, it's great for you if you want to be your own astrologer and time your best life. That's the whole idea. Doors will close pretty soon. So if you want to get in, I'm recording April 22nd. You'll get this probably a few days later. Patreon gets it first. Early access, ad-free. So let's go ahead and, and I do readings and everything below my newsletter. It's all in the description box already. So if you are new to my channel too, and you want to like and subscribe, it does help my channel grow. Thank you so, so much. So let's get going and talk a little bit more about how this eclipse may be playing out for you. So first of all, this eclipse is what we call a penumbral eclipse. This means that unlike a total eclipse when the moon is blocked completely by the shadow of the earth between the sun, this eclipse is going to be just barely visible. I mean, it's going to have a shadow over the earth, a penumbra, and I'll show you the penumbra of the eclipse, and it will influence certain parts of the world. But when you look at the moon during the eclipse, it's not like there's a little bite out of the moon. That's a partial eclipse. This penumbral eclipse is very subtle. It's like the moon is a little bit shaded up, you know, and it's going to be, easily activating certain parts of the world just because that's where the main shadow goes. Let me show you that. It may be helpful to show you what I mean rather than just me telling it to you. So if you take a look at this, just briefly, well, you'll get a vibe of what I'm trying to share with you, right? And did that share work? Because now I can't see it. So that's not good. Very possible you're not seeing what I'm seeing, but let me find it. Oh, there it is. Okay, you are seeing it. So you can see this area of the world where you have this very bright area. That's where it's the most actually visible as a dimmed out moon. And there's a lighter shade of dimmed out moon around it. I put a little pin here for Taiwan. Yes, Taiwan is in the more active corridor of the dimmed out moon, but you know, Russia, Asia, Australia, New Zealand, Eastern Europe, Africa kind of get all of a vibe, right? Of getting a little touch of this energy. And so in that sense, those areas of the world may be involved. In this case, North America, South America are not really having a lot of interaction with this lunar eclipse. It's more of a Asia, European, African, Australia, New Zealand story. But of course, we do see Taiwan in that area of the eclipse, and it's very possible stories to do with Taiwan and China will be in the news cycle in a big way over the next 6 months. Just keep that in mind. So that's just the geography of the eclipse. And of course, Europe does get involved as well. Some of Europe is definitely in there. And, you can see certain areas of Europe are kind of left out. Interestingly, that's Portugal over here completely like, we're not involved. Most of the coast of Portugal is like, we're not getting much of this stuff and all of that. And there's Scotland and England up there as well. They're completely free of this story. It's kind of interesting that there's an eclipse coming up for the court. This eclipse is going to be preceded by afterwards the coronation of King Charles, and maybe they had astrologers checking out that this eclipse really isn't connecting to England after all. So all well, it's not going to be as bad as all that. I mean, I wouldn't say that coronations in England are without astrologers guiding somebody somewhere, somehow. You know, if Nancy Reagan could do it, so could they. So away from that for a minute and back to me. So first of all, this eclipse has some interesting elements to it. I'm going to talk broadly. I'll show you the picture. One is the third eclipse of 3 eclipses. So you have to understand eclipses are coming in cycles of groups of them. And so this is a part of the Scorpio eclipse grouping of eclipses that have been ongoing since 2022. And the first eclipse was May the 16th of 2022 at 25 Scorpio, total lunar eclipse. The next eclipse in this cycle was in October 25th at 2 degrees of Scorpio. Oh, sorry, I apologize. Yeah, Scorpio, I'm right. 2 degrees Scorpio, a partial solar eclipse. So we are seeing that we have an eclipse in Scorpio way back when, on May 16th last year, and then on October 25th last fall. And this is the last Scorpio eclipse. And we're back to the lunar theme. And this is at 14 degrees and 52 minutes. You can round it up to 15 if you like. And if you have a planet there at around 15 degrees of Scorpio, or your sun, moon, or ascendant, or your midheaven, or your descendant, or your IC. These are the angles of your chart. Of course, it's going to profoundly, profoundly influence you. And if you are angular to that, let's say in the sign of Taurus across the way, all right, then Leo and Aquarius at perpendicular, and you have planets around 15 degrees or ascendant, descendant, ICMC, then of course, moon and sun is going to be very much affecting you. So that means, of course, the Taurus rising people, Aquarius rising people, Leo rising people can all be quite impacted by this lunar eclipse, especially if those angles of your rising sign degree are near 15. So I have a ascendant around 16 degrees of Aquarius. This is going to really impact me as an Aquarius rising because it squares my ascendant descendant axes. All right. So you look to your chart to see how impacted you might be from this eclipse. You know, there's going to be certain signs that barely feel it at all. And those are the Sagittarius and Libra, sun, moon, and rising people, and the Aries and Gemini, sun, moon, and rising, because they are in aversion to this eclipse. And it's these eclipses in Scorpio and Taurus have been barely affecting them over the last year and a half. These eclipses will finalize, by the way, in the fall within a Taurus eclipse, the last eclipse in this sequence of eclipses at 5 degrees of Taurus. Now, in the short term, this eclipse could be a little bit gnarly for certain things for the world. And I'm going to show you the sky so you can see what I mean and why I'm saying it. Before we get to the all signs, I'll show you a picture of the sky. I'm on a very old laptop, so it's very possible that I've got a jumbly, weird video. So I apologize if I'm static or anything, but I'm using an old laptop because my daughter's borrowing mine for her exams. So I'm going to share another picture with you, and then you're going to take a look at the sky. And there we go. You're seeing the actual day of the eclipse, and we can see that the sun is here at 14 degrees of Taurus, and the moon is across the way at 14 degrees of Scorpio. There's a beautiful star connected to this moon, by the way. It's called Alphecca, and for the most part, it's extremely positive. So in that sense, it's not the worst possible, full moon that's eclipsed. It's not so bad. And I'll tell you a little bit about Alphecca. I'm not going to spend hours on it, but the gist of it is I'm in the back end of my software, just going to read the star to you because it's not one of the stars that I use all the time in my work, but it does have incredible positive vibes. All right. It's a big star, the chief star, the most bright star of Corona Borealis. That's a constellation to do with the crown, and the Northern Crown, it's called. It's related to beauty, generosity, and acts of kindness, rewards for good works. It can be ambitious or hungry for power and glory, but it's best used if you are higher minded in your focus. So keep that in mind. If this is a very important lunar eclipse for you, falling on a planet or your sun, moon, and rising area, this particularly is a useful delineation to pay attention to. And at the same time, there is actually a, what do you call it? Bring come back online, Sabian symbol that's quite charming and really sweet and kind of on the softer side is how I would say of delineations. And that is called children playing. It's a Scorpio 15 degrees. You always round up. And the Sabian symbol degree for the moon, where the eclipse is children playing around 5 mounds of sand. 5 mounds of sand. Keyword in my book is naivete. So I guess you could also say, where is there a naive quality to this particular eclipse? And it also, according to the stepping stones of the book I like to use, is social development, self-expression, self-discovery, spontaneity, creativity, playfulness, and innocence. Now, but you could go, what does it mean if innocence is eclipsed? What if it's really about the eclipsing of innocence? All right. About that childlike energy of playing around 5 mounds of sand. And are 5 mounds of sand the five senses? Who knows? But it's worth contemplating. Now, continuing on with a bigger story for the world. I don't think this is very good for the stock markets of the world in general, particularly the New York Stock Exchange. And that's because this eclipse is pretty well square the ascendant and descendant axes of the New York Stock Exchange. This eclipse is ruled by the planet Mars, which is basically also in the second house of the New York Stock Exchange chart. And so with the South Node eclipse in Scorpio, ruled by Mars in the money house, the mercurial money house of the New York Stock Exchange. And with the eclipse squaring the ascendant of the stock exchange itself, the New York Stock Exchange is at 11 degrees of the sign of Taurus. This could very well be a very destabilizing eclipse in the 6 months that follow for stock exchange, United States, New York Stock Exchange. And just so you know, later down the pipeline, the Venus in the New York Stock Exchange is going to be eclipsed by the October 28th eclipse. So you know when the Venus, the goddess of money, in the 10th house of the stock exchange of the New York Stock Exchange gets eclipsed, that's also quite turbulent. So I expect there to be some serious turbulence in the stock markets over the next year. But I'm using the New York Stock Exchange because it's emblematic often of the larger global market trends as well. I find it interesting that the sun at 27 degrees of Taurus is on the fixed star Algol, which is a New York Stock Exchange sun, and it's also next to Mercury. Now, you know, Mercury and Taurus, just so you know, I'm not showing you this. I just know the New York Stock Exchange chart, so I'm not showing it to you. But Algol can be a wealth star, and it was used in using ritual magic and astrological magic. It's a Bohemian star. It can represent wealth. It also can represent calamity and great chaos, and Medusa's head being slayed around money, which is funny that the founders of the stock exchange would have been Masons. This is the 1700s. They knew what they were up to, that they were taking a gamble on Algol, you know, as a magical star for wealth. But on the other hand, it is also a highly turbulent and difficult star that can be quite malefic. So anyway, just to say though, that 27-degree Taurus, right, star sun on the star of Algol, is something that is going to be potentially quite activated by various things in the next year. I won't go into that. It's another indicator of some stock market turbulence. Anything else I want to say before I move on to the next story? Well, no, I'm going to move on now to the other thing to do with the sky, and you can see it in front of me with me, right? This is South Node. This is letting go, surrender, and release. But Scorpio is secrets, or things that are hidden, or things that are undercover, under stealth, you know, vibes. And so things like, you know, intelligence agencies can belong to Scorpio. Things like state secrets can belong to Scorpio. Things like whistleblowers and outcomes from whistleblowing are there. Things like forensics and investigations and detective work. So was the South Node a lunar eclipse, there could definitely be something revealed, especially with Mercury conjunct the sun on the other side of the storyline. I would expect revealing stories undergoing, you know, becoming available near the eclipse, but certainly over the 6 months that follow. Maybe most eclipses have a longer arc of time, at least 6 months, in which they're unfolding before our very eyes, you know, so don't expect it to be the day of the eclipse, maybe 2 months before and after. Lots of shocking secrets coming out of this eclipse. And the last eclipse, you know, was gnarly for Jupiter being involved, could mean the death or the illness or the downfall of world leaders. And we have to look at both eclipse cycles, right? I mean, we just had the solar eclipse happen at 20 degrees of Aries, 29 degrees of Aries on the 20th of April. And that looked really bobbly for world leaders going down. I did mention Joe Biden in that eclipse. Go listen to it. The pandemic story is in here. Okay. And I want to mention it. And, you know, the pandemic is over for most ordinary people. Anyone is still wandering around wearing a mask and is afraid of COVID at this point, you know, I guess you might want to figure out why. I don't know. And so most people have had it. Most people have been vaccinated and had it. Most people have had it without being vaccinated and they're fine, whatever. Everyone's been through it. It's something that is no longer going to be a national emergency, according to Joe Biden, as of May 11th in the United States. And Switzerland's now no longer giving out vaccines at all, and just saying that no one gets them unless you apply for a special dispensation. So there's a lot of change going on in the pandemic narrative. But you can see that there's some pandemic stories going on with the lunar eclipse, and that is Hygiea, hygiene and health, right? And in your own life, this eclipse is also going to bring up that square to Hygiea. Where in your mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical health are you going to be asked to make some changes over the 6 months that follow, or find changes happening? That's one of the ideas there. But also for the collective, that hygiene, masking, distance we had to create between people during the pandemic. And she's just the god of medicine and medical interventions, and doctors and nurses as well, is squared by this lunar eclipse. Now add to that a couple other stories. Pan for pandemic and Apollo for the god of plagues are both involved in this side stories of the eclipse. Let's talk about it. So Pan for pandemic is at 14 degrees of the sign of Gemini as we speak. That's where he's traveling right now. Pan means more things than pandemic, but Pan, the asteroid, can be a useful tool for the pandemic. This Pan, the pandemic, is trining Hygiea, suggesting a flow around pandemic stories. And this is positive. And then you can also see that the pandemic god is pretty close to benefic Venus. Now, absolute the seer who could see the future and is often associated with conspiracy theories is conjunct Venus. Exactly. And what is Venus doing? She is squaring, or no, sorry, let me look that up on my brains. Yep, she's squaring Apollo, the god of plagues. Something about seeing the future, or conspiracy theories, or things that are like absolutes, could see the way things worked. And he knew there would be all this disaster at a wedding, and no one believed that this centaur being, and it turned out to be right. And for some reason, the centaur has been observed to be involved in conspiracy theory. As many of us know, what was conspiracy before is now the real deal, and everyone knows it. So yeah, what can you do? But I'd say that this is definitely kind of saying, all right, what could have been considered conspiracy content connected to pandemic and Venus, bonifying the whole thing, bringing something good. And then we have this, square to Apollo, Mr. Plague God. At the same time, we have Pan trining Hygiea. There's something positive, but also disclosure oriented, perhaps coming out of the story cycle with the news cycle, maybe in the couple of weeks before and after the eclipse of May the 5th, or maybe in the 6 months that follow. Big disclosures there, big revelations there as well. When it comes to war, see, Mars is a ruler of things to do with war. He's the ruler of this eclipse. It's about disclosures and revelations. We have the ongoing Ukraine-Russia situation, lots of disclosures about the pipeline blow up, who blew up that pipeline and why. The Nord Stream pipeline made Germany mad, made the US duck. We didn't do it. That's not longer believed by anybody. And you can also see that Mars is in water, right? He's going through the sign of Cancer. Now, in the United States, that Cancer place is where the United States sun is. It's where the United States has the 8th house, which is a money house for the Sibley US chart. So there could be some discombobulation in the money story, but Mars is trying to flow to this eclipse and offer some support. So it could be that if there's any real big turbulence in things to do with markets or banking, there's going to be some support from Mars to shore things up. Mars isn't so comfortable, of course, in the sign of motherhood, in the sign of tender, emotional, protective mother energy. It's a possibility that this eclipse could involve some disclosures around things to do with women or children, or to do with things that are Cancerian in nature. I'm just thinking about that. Okay, that's about all I have to say. I might do a separate video closer to the eclipse just on world predictions. I really want to get to how this may impact you based on your sun, moon, and rising sign. Now, I don't have my special backgrounds today because I'm not using my laptop. Normally, I'll be talking about your sign. You'll see it behind you, but there are timestamps and chapters. That simply means you have to push a button, boom, and you advance to your sign, the story about you, or timestamps in the comments. You know how that works, right? So you can just jump to your sign and you'll be there right away. My sister will timestamp this for us, and then it makes it super easy for you not to get lost. Anything else I want to say in general? Because I'm sure I forgot something. I have my eclipse notes before I get going. Well, I would say this: Mars is out of bounds until May the 5th. And then he goes into what we call the declination, where he's within a certain degree, which is 23 of the sun. So basically, this is a time when Mars is calming down, which can be positive. Mars has been out of bounds for several months. So extremes in conflict, extremes in war, extremes in all things Martian. And all of a sudden, aggression, all of a sudden Mars is like, oh, I'm back in bounds. So it's interesting that Mars is going into back in bounds on the actual day of the eclipse. I think that's a more good than negative thing. I think it feels really good, and Jupiter, yeah, we won't talk about Jupiter. He's really not in the story, but he will be visible again in early May, by the 10th, 11th, 12th for sure. He's definitely visible. And so this is good too, but I think he's like kind of like from that solar eclipse, not really shown his full Monty. Remember in the solar eclipse, I said death of a world leader, stepping down, health issues, some leader going down in some way. And with Jupiter representing leader and world leader, he's not visible until maybe the first week to the middle of May, depending on where you live. And so all that story of world leader going down probably isn't here yet. We had to wait for it to show up. Okay, let's get talking about your sign. We're going to start with Aries, and then we're going to move to all signs in order, probably about 3 or 4 minutes per sign. Let's get rolling. By the way, if you are in the live premiere and you want to hit that like button right now, smash my like button, please do so. That's important for the algorithm, so it shares this video more widely after we're done in the live premiere. And so we're going to go, and I would show you the screen, but the moon moves so quickly that it's going to look really, really discombobulating. So I'm not going to show you the chart this time. Just remember, the moon is around 14, almost 15 degrees of Scorpio. If you're a fixed sign, that's a Taurus, a Scorpio, a Leo, or Aquarius, like me, and your ascendant or sun and moon is around 15 degrees and you're really feeling it. Let's get 3 degrees on either side. The sun can be your mother and the moon can be your father. So my son has his moon at 18 degrees of Leo. That's me in his chart. My daughter has her moon at 18 degrees of Libra. And I'm like 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 4 degrees. I'm pretty close to getting in the Leo chart for my son a little eclipse turbulence. Or my daughter, my son's chart, square, and it's squaring my ascendant. So as I'm looking for this to be a major change eclipse. Let me say one more thing about eclipses. They are inevitably going to bring destined change. You just can't go, oh, nothing's happening here. No, I had an eclipse exactly on the IC back in November of my chart, the root of my chart representing my home, my nest, my home base, back in November of 2021. And I knew it, 2020, and I knew it meant I would move. And I was living in Montreal, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to move, schmove. I love it here. And of course, within 4 months, I knew exactly why I was moving. So these eclipses will bring significant external change, except for, as I said, the signs that are least affected, especially rising, but sun and moon secondly, listen for your rising, are the ones that are in aversion to the eclipse. To remind you, you are a Gemini rising, you are a Libra rising, and you are a you are Sagittarius rising, you are a Libra rising, you are Gemini rising, you are an Aries rising. You are least affected, sun and moon are too, but the risings especially, these are an eclipse cycle you'll be affected, but you're least rattled by the eclipses. It doesn't rock your world. Whereas of course the fixed signs will be rocked. Yes, the fixed signs will have change, and they have been having change. That Taurus, that Scorpio, that Aquarian and Leo folk, we have been through it since this eclipse cycle really dug in earnest January of 22, and it's kind of starting to leak its energy away and wane out by the July 16th of this year. Okay, so let's get or 18th, 16th. Okay, let's get going and talk about Aries, sun, moon, and rising sign. Now, let's say Aries, you are Mars ruled. So any kind of an eclipse in a Mars ruled sign is important to you. This is an eclipse in Scorpio. Scorpio is where? It's your 8th house. Now, I said you are least affected because you are an aversion to it. And because Mars is your ruler, to some degree, you are impacted a little bit more. Now, you've been having eclipses in the 8th house of chunky money already. I talked about it earlier back in May last year, and again in October. And now here's the last one, the 3rd and last eclipse. So this is nothing new. This is about changing things to do with your significant money that you acquire through other people instead of your own earned income. This is your inheritance monies. This is your tax rebates. This is your credit card debt. debt and mortgages, escrow, insurance payouts, things to do with spousal shared resource, business partnership money, royalty income. This is other kinds of money that aren't directly related to earnings and actions you do to earn it. And because of that, there's a call of the sky to make changes. South Node is definitely like, can take a leaky vibe here, like you're disappointed, but it's also like, don't depend on those monies. Don't live off your retirement monies. Don't live off your spousal monies. Like, it's time to take your attention to your second house of earnings and get your hustle on and make your own money. And that's what the eclipse cycle is trying to do. A lot of your attention is being drawn to expanding your earnings potential. I have an Aries sun and moon. I can attest to that. I decided not to live off my savings or credit card debts or anything like that and hustle my ass up for the last year and a bit. And that's what I've done. And that's what's worked for me. So think of it that way. Now, you do have a beautiful star Alphecca there. I talked about it in the beginning. It gives us softness to this eclipse. It can bring achievement and some success if you have a higher minded focus and purpose around how you wish to achieve your success. Because Hygiea is in a T-square to this eclipse, there's definitely something to be said to do with better hygiene, health, healing, and wellness when it comes to 11th house matters. That's where Hygiea sits in Aquarius in your 11th house. This is friendship groups, circles, and groups of belonging, but also hygiene in terms of the great gains financially you make from your career. The 11th house feeds the 10th, and it's the gains from your career. Somebody weirdly commented that the 11th house, nothing to do with money and career on my channel recently. I'm like, absolutely not. It does have a lot to do with even when your celebrity status or your fame status picks up from your career, that's your 11th house. So this is a place where you're kind of cleaning up your act. You may refine the way you make money over the next 6 months in order to have a more healing quality to the way the gains come. Maybe make work, where does that work smart, not hard, that kind of thing. But whatever it is, it's going to influence you positively, I think, as you go through some kind of crisis energy in order to heal the way you make the money you make, the way the earnings are coming through your sky. So think of it more, Hygiea can be mind, body, spirit. She can be anything. Also, maybe I could argue that a friend or an elder sibling could encounter an illness with Hygiea, meaning doctors and nurses, and there could be some critical energy between that and your money house as you have to step away to support that elder sibling or a friend over the 6 months that follow. That's just a possibility. It's not a probability. And with Mars finally as the eclipse lord at the 21st degree of Cancer at the time of the eclipse, this is about your property, home, land, and real estate, and your money and your financials. So there's stuff going on. It could include a flow from Mars, could involve a mortgage in the next 6 months. Some of you may buy or sell property. It is a possibility the eclipse opens up that door for you. So buying and selling real estate for some of you will be a narrative for the 6 months ahead. And it will probably be positive because Mars is your Lord and he's trying to do good by you. And he's flowing to this eclipse itself. So it's really good for acquiring a loan, a mortgage, or things like that, or taking possession of money from the sale of a property and putting that chunk of money into your savings or your 401k. And lastly, if you have investments in the market, this can support some success through investments, but be cautious. A full moon could be completing an investment by selling it. I've got to sell a damn WISE token. I don't even know how to do it. I'm going to figure that out probably after this eclipse and get rid of that thing and take the possession of the money from the stock or the token off the table. All right. And let's get going on to the next story. Do anything else I want to say for you guys? Not really. Just know that there could be some news that this eclipse will spill some revelations or secrets about the family of origin. Mars is in the house of the ancestor. The moon is in the house of secrets. Mercury wants to spill the news to the house of speech. He's with the sun and Uranus. Surprise! Some surprising news could come about your family of origin. You find out that your great grandma was, half, Cherokee and you have an Indian origin ancestry, or you find out that, your mother isn't really your mother and oh my gosh, secrets revealed and you were adopted or whatever. But you could have family secrets, ancestral stories spilling out new secrets over the course of the next 6 months. Taurus, sun, moon, and rising, and especially rising sign, of course. And if you're in the live premiere, hit the like button. Thank you so much. Help my channel grow. We could talk about this lunar eclipse for you, right? In the context of the battle you've been going through, as some very intense energy has been moving through. Solar eclipses in the house of you and lunar eclipses in the house of other people you engage with. And A south node eclipse is moving through Taurus over the last year and a half, and north node eclipse is moving through Taurus in the last year and a half. South node eclipse is moving through Scorpio in the last year and a half. You've been under the most intense axes of change. All right. So remember, we had an eclipse at 25 degrees of the sign of Scorpio, and then 2 degrees of the sign of Scorpio already. So you've been through some Scorpio eclipse energy. It's nothing new. That would have been back in the day, which I already gave you the dates, but here we go again. May 16th of 2022. That was at 25 Scorpio. And later on, there was a Scorpio solar eclipse at 2 degrees of Scorpio on October 25th. That was your ascendant descendant axis being activated. So if you're, Taurus 25-ish ascendant, and then later on Taurus second degree-ish ascendant, those 2 eclipses will impact you the most. You're already through it, basically. But if your ascendant is in Taurus, or sun moon secondarily, this time around 15 degrees, you're the ones who are getting the most intensity. Now, this is your descendant axis. It's activated. It's not about you. It's your marriage partner or your business partner or some significant other person in your life or your client, audience, marketplace crew. And that is what's being eclipsed. A full moon is about a completion and ending. It can also bring revelations and insights and new ways of seeing things, but it may also be about others in your life, not even really your story. You could have this looking like a disclosure or some information in the 6 months that follows from that main significant partner in your life, your marriage type partner or significant committed love partner. Because this is an eclipse that is ruled by Mars and Mars is in the 3rd house, you also may have things evolved from the siblings story of your life. Okay, so aunts, uncles, cousins, nieces, nephews, siblings can be involved in this eclipse in some way as well. As a result of that, pay attention to the 6 months that follow with something to do with those themes. But because Mars in the house of siblings flows to this lunar eclipse of completions, it looks more positive than negative regarding those people in your life. Forms a kind of a wedge to Mars in the house of siblings, Trips, travel, and journeys and education, the skill space, our 3rd house matters. And there can be some change that you make in those areas of your life, Taurus, change of neighborhood, even change of location of where you're living, especially if your IC, the root, is in your 3rd house. This is if you're using whole sign houses, which I highly recommend. That would indicate a move for you in the 6 months that follows this eclipse. Now, a lot of people say to me, oh, this didn't happen the way you said it would for my sign. You have to understand your natal chart is unique. I'm talking about bell curve stuff, but that's why I'm saying if your IC is floating in your 3rd house when Mars is here as the Lord of the eclipse, this could literally mean a move in the next 6 months with your main partner or business partner, or just a legal contract you sign, 7th house, or to find a new home and move, or change of neighborhood, of course, as well. Also, Hygiea, the goddess of health, healing, and hygiene, will be squared by this eclipse. She's up at 18 degrees of the sign of Aquarius, and the eclipse is at 15. So she's tightly squared. This is how to create a healing, some hygiene, cleaning up, something to do with your reputation, to do with your career ambition, to do with your success in your career or your visible reputation regarding your career path or whatever it is you're doing in the world. Certainly for the Taurus rising, especially, this could be with Pluto up there, some kind of decimation of your career, some kind of total destruction transformation that's been happening March, April, May, June, and it's not been easy. And now Hygiea is here saying, let's clean this mess up. And you may find yourself mopping up something to do with some kind of deeply transformative, if not difficult, career stories that have been going on throughout late March into April, into May, and finally finishing up in June. You may also attract healing people or begin something to do with healing professions in your career if that's something you wish to do in the 6 months that follows this eclipse. And anything else I can say? There's a lot of elements here of you going through a lot of shock and surprise during the time of this, build up to this eclipse with Uranus in the house of you, and then Mercury here in Taurus for like a dog's age, right? What is all about the news. Because Mercury is retrograde during this eclipse, you may be going back and looking at some ideas you've had in the past, and you may be trying to figure out how to shore up your career or your reputation with these ideas from the past coming back, or old messages and emails and phone calls from your past somehow being connected to this eclipse and helping you strengthen some kind of difficult career and reputation terrain. And finally, honestly, if your ascendant at Taurus is near 15 degrees, let's say within 3 or 4 degrees of either side, and there's a full moon eclipse in the marriage house or business partnerships, it's the end of a relationship, likely a possibility anyway. I mean, these eclipses only happen every 18 to 20 years. So this is the time where that energy of an ending, a completion, a fullness, a fruition is happening in a house that's normally about marriage, sometimes about legal matters, and sometimes about business partners, and less so, but truly sometimes about your business clients and audience. So you may have a breakdown ending with some of those types of people or near the eclipse, 2 weeks before, up to maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks after, and then certainly even within the 6 months that follow. You're in the live premiere and you forgot to hit that like button. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Please do so. Let's go ahead and talk about Gemini, sun, moon, and rising sign. Well, Geminis, I have to say, you guys are one of the least impacted signs. Remember, we talked about the ones that don't get the most brunt from these eclipses in general, and you're one of them. So you're kind of like watching with your popcorn on the side as everyone's going, oh, eclipses, I'm tossing and turning on a sea of eclipses. And you guys are like, grab the popcorn, right? So for you, it's not as intensive for most people. And you've got Venus in the sign of you during the eclipse. So you're feeling really charming, beautiful, lovely, and happy. So this is the least difficult one for you. And as this eclipse is happening, however, in your 6th house, it can be about your health. And it can be about your work routines and your office, college, co-worker space. It can be about pets as well. Like if you're a Gemini rising, especially, this could be a call to watch your health a bit, especially urogenital tract area, that kind of thing can be scorpionic, sexual organs and stuff. So you're basically looking at the possibility of attending to better health and protocols for your health regarding those parts of your body, as a full moon sheds a light, an eerie way of seeing something new. And you may go, oh my God, this is what I need to do to improve my health, because, it can reveal something, especially in Scorpio, that you need to see to improve that kind of health for you. It can also look like a completion of a job or a work project or some direction of work that you've been undergoing. The moon here in the Scorpio part of your chart does rule your house of earnings. And so therefore, maybe work and money stories are changing for you. You're no longer going to make money that way. You're going to change this job, quit that job, end that job. Certain things like that for some of you in the 6 months that follow are very, very possible. Now, if you are thinking of getting a pet and there's a lunar eclipse, a full moon in the house of pets, it could bring a new pet into your life. It possibly is one you've been thinking about already. And it may also involve some animal, like rescue animal from a foreign place, because of the Sun, Mercury energy in the house of foreign shores across the way. But also the South Node can be ending with a pet. So if you have an elder or aging or ill pet, I will say this could indicate a time in which that pet is getting ready to pass over the 6 months that follow. Best to be forewarned is forearmed, right? If you have work that you want to do with a higher mind and purpose, the star Alphecca can help you succeed. That has to qualitatively be because of that corona borealis, that crown that you're willing to wear in the work and service house, but with that higher minded focus. Hygiea is squaring this eclipse, creating a tight T-square from 18 degrees of Aquarius. And this is a suggestion that you might have to heal something to do with truth. That's 9th house, God, religion, spirituality, foreign lands, foreign shores. Pluto's there. What is this intensity around legal matters, court cases, foreign shores? What needs to be cleaned up? Where do you need some more hygiene up there? Now, this is the house of the father in a general sense. And so father figures, hygiene, health challenges for a father figure, especially with the sun involved in the house of hospitals, which is where the sun is a 12th house during this eclipse. Father figures it doesn't have to be dad, doesn't have to be granddad. It can be someone you respect like a father figure. Moving into this energy could definitely suggest illness or health challenges for a father figure in the 6 months after this full moon lunar eclipse, just as a general possibility that could happen. And anything else I'd say? If you're in an educational setting and Hygiea is up here, maybe clean up your hygiene about the course selection or something, especially if it's colleges or campus or things like that, or some tension and intensity, but maybe change regarding academics. If you're changing a degree and it's in a health field, that could be what that's showing as well. Sixth house is leases and tenancies and completions. Some of you, Gemini, sun, moon, and rising, but whatever, all of you actually could be looking at a change of lease, a change of rental property, a change of tenancy, especially with Mercury ruling the house of home and land in your sky, and he's across the way from the eclipse. So look for news and information that follows this eclipse about maybe a change about where you will rent or rent out a property or be the renter of a property. Does that make sense for you? I hope it does. Keep me posted. I'd like to know what happens. I'm always listening to my comments. I read all my comments. I usually heart or like, but I often reply as well. Okay, thanks for that, listening to that story for you guys. Let's move ahead into the next sign. And reminders, as always, to hit that like button while you're live in my premiere or later when you're watching. And please subscribe. Otherwise, you don't know what I'm doing. And I put out 30 videos sometimes a month. You want to be on top of the news that's fit to print. All right, let's go ahead and talk about you as a Cancer rising, sun, and especially Cancer rising, but sun and moon secondarily. Now, you guys are looking at this eclipse happening in a kind of flow to you. Why? You're a water sign, right? And this is happening in a watery place. It's called the water of your Cancer, looking over at the water Scorpio fifth house story. So in general, the eclipses make changes for you during this cycle that started, as I said in the beginning, with a lunar eclipse last May, and then a solar eclipse here in October. And now here's the last of these eclipses. So the energy is a flowing kind of change for most Cancer risings. You're not gripping the wheel, white knuckling it at all. You're not stressed about the change necessarily. But here we have a full moon in the house of children. It can be an ending and a completion with a child. By that, it could be something as simple as a child moving out of the home, denesting, that kind of thing. Geographical separation from a child, even. If you want to have a baby and you've been trying to get pregnant and there's a full moon in the house of children, it could end a time of trying, maybe a successful completion of the effort to get pregnant is one way of coding that. The fifth house is your inspiration, your muse, and your creativity. All these south node eclipses are also lending itself to letting go, surrendering, and releasing there. But it's also skills and talents, especially natural talents. Like you can sing, you can paint, you got a natural ability, a talent. And that's really cool because the south node can be about things that are almost like past life cities or gifts. So some of you may be excavating some natural abilities and talents over this eclipse cycle. And this last eclipse could bring you into touch with more of that. Now, if your Cancer rising, of course, is near the 15th degree, let's say 2 or 3 degrees on either side, sun and moon secondarily, because sun can be dad and moon can be mom, you will find that this can really be the most important of these eclipses for you, as this flow is engendering something really tight to your ascendant identity and degree. Because this eclipse happens to be ruled by Mars, and by the way, the fifth house is also entrepreneurial, independent business and enterprise. And that's probably been a place where you've been experiencing some kind of shifts and change over the last year. And that's to be considered. And a lot of energy has been going on to expand your 11th house of great gains from your career financially, more reputation expansion, more allies and friends, and elder sibling help towards achieving that. And that's been ongoing right through this eclipse cycle. But you're pulling away from the kind of the more quiet fifth house to be more public in this cycle, and less, down in the artist studio, so to speak. Fifth house is fertility as well. So all this could be either loss or disappointment on getting pregnant, or in an effort to do the pregnancy thing for some Cancer risings. A romantic love belongs and sexuality belong to the fifth house. I'm not going to lie, a fifth house with a south node eclipse cycle could mean disappointment sexually, disappointment romantically. This full moon here could be definitely the end of a romantic energy. And some of you, like, this eclipse is on May 5th, but honestly, you can feel eclipses up to a month in advance. It could have been for some Cancer rising, the end of a romantic story, especially if your Cancer rising is near 15 degrees. Same with the sex energy, less attention down there with sexuality, romance, lover stories, and some disappointments in that area, perhaps for some Cancer risings. The best you could achieve with a south node transit through the lover's house is a very destined and soulmatey vibe with a romantic partner. Mars is moving through the house of you, and he's the lord of the moon, and he's flowing to it from Cancer. Although he's out of dignity, nonetheless, he is in a flow state here. So how are you taking actions and making decisions in the wake of this eclipse over the 6 months that follow that are allowing you to move forward in all things fifth house? which I've delineated with a square in your chunky money house that belongs to your spouse, your inheritance monies, your 401k, your stock investments, your tax rebates or retaxes, your credit cards, your mortgages. There's hygiene needed here. You need to clean this area up. And the square over the 6 months is helping you clean it up, make it more hygienic, cleaning up your hygiene in your finances, especially since if you have an entrepreneurial thing going, that could do that, or the great gains from the career house. It activates this whole idea of cleaning up your money story. That's basically what it's doing. The sun rules your income and earnings and is opposite this eclipse, of course, because that's the why it's a full moon. So even that is in the narrative. You're here to clean up your act in your money story. The moon rules your body, and this is a full moon in the 5th house. What's another code for that? Have more joy, vitality, and better health by finding what inspires you, gives you enthusiasm, and what makes you want to joyfully get out of bed in the morning. Full moon can help you receive the light of truth to know what makes you joyful so that you can be more healthy, especially with Mars in the 1st house. Mars is, watch for accidents and injuries in the 6 months that follow. But because of the flow, it'll all work out. You stub your toe, you have a cast on your toe, but they realize you've got a fungus that you need to treat, and it all works out, and you have no fungus and an unbroken toe at the end of the day. So something is trying to happen to improve your health as well over the 6 months that follow this eclipse. Okay, good luck with that, Cancers. I think you're going to enjoy this last eclipse. I don't think it's a big deal for you. For the most part, I think it's going to be quite okay. So let me know how it goes later on. I'd love to hear back and see how you felt as you navigated this eclipse over the months that follow. All righty. Moving to the next sign. Time stamping Sister Nancy, who's a Cancer rising. And by the way, don't forget, guys, to hit that like button in the live premiere. I so appreciate that. Lots of regulars that come here: the Feral Writer, Misbehaving, L.A. Taylor, Jupiter 8, Mercury with the Message, the Crystalline Alchemist, the Herbal Empress, Ace of Spades. I know if I get some of you guys, Angie Jennings, Michael Thrash, and Michael Vaudrey sometimes is here. Thank you for showing up in my premieres with me to talk about this in the chat. And if you are listening later on, if you don't know that, I post these things all the time. Check the community tab that I'm going to do a premiere, or subscribe and hit the notification button. And I'm with you. I don't just put these things out there. I spend time with you and listen to my own content with you. It's called a chat box live premiere thingy. Okay, moving on. Leo, sun, moon, and rising sign. So for you guys, this is an eclipse cycle that is going to be activating what we call the angular parts of your chart. You are one of the fixed signs, like I mentioned in the beginning, the Taurus, Scorpio, Aquarius, Leo people who really, really feel this eclipse. Okay, so if your sun, moon, or rising is in Leo near 15, you find this is very importantly going to affect you. Like my son has his 10th house moon at 18 degrees, and he will be likely having some change in his job or career as a result of this eclipse. All right, so you can look at that, but it's also moon mom. So of course I'm watching that in my child's chart going, eeks, there's an eclipse squaring his mom. That's me. So I'm kind of like biting my nails a little bit about that for me as well. Could mean that there's a change in my relationship to my son, for example, or vis-a-vis each other. So this is why you need to know your rising sign. It's going to be more accurate than the sun and moon in your chart, which can be a parent figure. All right. So Leo, sun, moon, and rising. What I mean by angular is eclipse is happening in your 4th house. Now you're nothing new, right? May of last year, October of last year, you've had South Node let go, eclipses, disappointment, loss, endings, and letting go in matters of home, property, real estate. This is the house of your family of origin. It can be the house of the mother. It can be the house of things to do with a legacy wealth and things to do with ancestral line stuff and what you do in and from the home. And there's this energy of South Node, let go, surrender, release, disappointment, endings that's happening down here. Some of you are changing homes, buying and selling a home, re-renting, moving to a new home, renting a new home. Mars is the lord of this eclipse. And if you're a Leo, 15 degrees, especially sun and moon, or within 3 or 4 degrees of that, this is important. And as Mars is the lord of this eclipse, is an exaltation lord of rentals and tenancies. So some of you might rent a new place. Some of you may sell or buy a place in the 6 months that follow the eclipse. As well, Mars is traveling through Scorpio, Cancer, and flowing to this eclipse, lending its support from the 12th house. 12th house can be foreign shores and lands, revenue from foreign shores and lands. This could say that some Leos will move to a foreign land in the 6 months that follow this eclipse. Possibly that eclipse could also open up new lines of study and learning. Mars rules your higher education house, your 9th. And so the 12th house placement of Mars is also sometimes activating learning, distance learning, long distance learning, travel for learning. So some of you may decide after the 6 months of this eclipse to quit your job and go back to school or something like that. Now, there's a square to Hygiea. I mentioned it earlier for the world and the pandemic stories, but for you, what do you need to clean up in your significant love relationships? We're talking about your long-term committed love partners, and we're also talking about business partnerships. This is your 7th house. This could ask you as well, it could be your client's marketplace and audience to clean that area up, to bring some healing to it. All right. This could also be about a marriage partner or life mate or significant other having a health challenge over the 6 months that follow this eclipse. This lunar eclipse can also activate the idea of legal matters needing to be cleared up, especially when it comes to vows, contracts, and agreements. Hygea's let's clean it up, Pluto. This is powerful stuff going on here. If you're with somebody and you're already married, though, this could definitely be a time when you need to heal that relationship. And there's grit and intention and tension with that person in the months that follow this eclipse, and you're going to work on the healing energies of it. The sun is your ruler. The sun is at the top of the sky with Mercury, North Node, and Uranus. Unexpected changes regarding career influencing your home and where you live are quite possible for Leos as a result of this eclipse and the 6 months that follow. Because you're under this eclipse cycle, and this is the last of the eclipses, if you're a Leo, sun, moon, and rising, and you haven't moved last year, you will likely be one of the leftovers where there's a change regarding the home and the property, and lastly, legacy wealth. Some of you could be looking at an inheritance spitting out from this eclipse, especially from father figures, and that eclipse from father figures. And the idea of inheritance was activated by the solar eclipse that happened back in April on the 20th. So this could be an extension of that, because 4th house matters is wealth from the family of origin, mom or dad. Okay. So there you go. Let's keep on with the story. Let's talk to the next sign, which is Virgo. Virgo sun, Virgo moon, and rising especially. Now, Virgo people, this is an eclipse, is a soft touch for you. This eclipse cycle last May, October, and this last Scorpio eclipse, they've all been happening in your 3rd house. This is a place where you're needing to let go, surrender, and release something. This is a house of siblings, aunts, uncles, cousins, nephews, and nieces. This is the house of things to do with your local neighborhood, places you inhabit, go to, or even work in locally, your online world, and things to do with skills-based education and learning. So you may be getting some kind of releasing energy here. Again, this is not just the day of the eclipse, which is May the 5th, but can actually be something that plays out over the 6 months that follow. Trips and travel are here, and maybe there's been a sort of a restriction on shorter distance trips and travel for some reason. Certainly with the sun and the rest of the story, North Node, having gone through your 9th house, right? Back throughout this whole story, all through 22, that's where the other side of the eclipses are, the North Node side. You've been expanding in foreign lands, foreign travel, legal, court matters, and perhaps foreign tourist travel. Did I say that? And higher education and book publishing. These have all been taking your attention, and you're taking energy away from the local neighborhood. You know, you go to bars, restaurants, and pubs down there. Maybe you've had no freaking social life, no fun. And this has been continuing. Now, over the 6 months that follow, this is the last of that energy. Because this is in a sextile to your Leo ascendant, especially if your ascendant is near 15 degrees, this is not such a hard eclipse at all. So, you know, think about it this way. The eclipse that hit you May 16th lunar eclipse would have been impacting 25-degree Virgos more intensely. And the one 2-degree Virgos got more the intensity from the October eclipse at 6 months. Now it's the mid-range Virgos getting this eclipse from the lunar eclipse. So you get the most juice from this one way or the other. So you could have a change in sibling relationships, change of neighborhood, change of how you enjoy your neighborhood, how you interact with things, or what things you might learn. It can open up a new beginning, a completion, but also a new portal module of perception. Maybe you want to take a skills-based course. My daughter thinks she wants to learn how to use a sewing machine. This could end up, as a Virgo rising child, her new foray into sewing machines. We'll see what happens. The moon is the ruler of the 11th house for you, of great gains from your career, and that's where Mars sits. Now, Mars is in detriment, and you may felt you stalled out a little bit recently about your earnings profile, but now that Mars is involved in a flowing trine to the eclipse in the area of online world or local neighborhood, and because as well, the moon owns the part of your chart that represents career gains, great career gains, financial gain from your work, this could be 6 months in which you get some uplift there, especially as Venus during the actual eclipse is in your 10th house. So you could be looking at some kind of raise, promotion, better job, new job in the local neighborhood or online in the 6 months that follow this particular lunar eclipse. If your floating IC is in the 3rd house, that would mean your midheaven is floating in the whole sign 9th house. A lunar eclipse close to the 15th degree of your 3rd house means a change of home, because this is a change of home connected to Hygiea in your 6th house of rents and tenancies. Maybe in the 6 months that follow, some of you Virgo risings will move to a new home and rent a new home. With Hygiea square this eclipse in the house of sickness, there's no doubt about it. A lot of Virgos are being asked to pay attention to cleaning up their health over the 6 months that follow this eclipse, especially if it's an undoing, self-undoing, or addiction, because addictions is in your 12th house and the sun is connected to the eclipse and rules that house of addiction, self-undoing, insane asylums, incarcerations, hospitals, and jails. If you just have one of those stupid things you do, you vape, you drink too much, you're into your weed too much or whatever, this eclipse will help you clean that up and get rid of that narrative. So this is why you clean up the health act. If you need to do better hygiene and cleaning up things to do with your work habits and routines around your work, this helps you with that over the 6 months that follow as well. And if a pet needs to be healed because a pet is sick in the 6 months that follow, the eclipse is trying to bring that to your attention, but also could bring a health challenge with a pet who's already healthy. Unfortunately, with Pluto here, health decline and death of a pet in the 6 months that follow the eclipse is possible for Virgo sun and moon, but most accurate rising. My daughter has an aging out pet with, her dad owns it, but it's her dog too. My best friend Sylvia is a Virgo rising. I take care of Milo all the time. He's 15. He has congestive heart failure. It suggests maybe a health decline and death of a pet in the 6 months that follow the eclipse. So I'm not going to pretend it doesn't exist in the charts of these Virgo folk. Good to look at that proactively. All right, Virgos, thanks for listening. Let's keep going. I am determined to get all of you done in time for me to enjoy time with my partner who's living here with me right now, visiting from the United States, to have some wine and some lovely Greek salad and lamb that I'm cooking up tonight. I'm recording on April the 22nd. You're not getting it right away in the public until maybe April the 24th or something, 5th, because my Patreon community gets all my content ad-free early, ahead of the curve, without any ads, and they get first dibs on it for $5 a month plus 2 meetings with me. Does Patreon interest you? Jump aboard. Yeah, I fit a pitch into the middle of this video. All right. I have a feeling my video is like static and stalling. Let me get rid of some other things on the back end here. This old laptop is not got a lot of juice. Yeah. So we get rid of a few charts that were up in the back end. That should help. Moving on then to the next sign. The next sign is, of course, Libra, sun, moon, and rising sign. You are one of the signs in inversion or within a semi-sextile to the eclipse. So you are not that impacted directly. You're watching with your popcorn and your Coca-Cola on the sidelines. And yet you do get some influence here. For you, it's about a money house. It's your earnings house. How do you make money? How do you get yourself, you could possess things here. It could be possessions like your car and things you own, resources and earnings. So in what way could you possibly be looking at the opportunity here? Hang on a sec. I got to pause my recording. I'll be right back. All right, Libra. So going on with your story, a full moon here with a south node energy that, happened last May. And as I said, happened in October. And here's the third eclipse in last. It's like a leaking energy, a surrender and a change energy, a let go around earnings. Some of you need to change your work. It's an ending of a job. It's an ending of a way of making money, or just even like the way, like the job you're doing that you're making the money in, right? So certainly for some of you, that's again the same story. Have you let go of that job or that earnings or that resource strategy? It's also a push and a pull to get more money from inheritances, stock investments, money making money, leveraging money, loans and stuff. That's been the amplification point of the last year of 22 into, this fall's last eclipse in Taurus. And so there's more of this energy of taking away from your second house. Some of you may be reforming your values, or they have some difficulty with your teeth or your face during these south node eclipses through the second house. So this is a lunar eclipse. Of course, it's a full moon. It can bring a completion or an end to a job or earning strategy. There is a square from Hygiea in the fifth house of what you enjoy, what you like. You may have tensions here because Hygiea wants you to heal something to do with enjoyment, joy, fun, pleasure. And there's a square to the earnings house. And there's also a T-square here to your eighth house of chunky money. And you've got all three money houses, 2, 8, and 5 activated. So some money changes are coming as a result of this eclipse. If you have a child that's draining you financially, or a love partner who's draining you financially, this is also squaring that, and you're going to clean up that drainage of your money story through those partnerships or children, and try to work out something different with those characters in your life. Fifth house is your independent business enterprise. Are you an entrepreneur? Because if you are, then of course you could be making changes in how you run your entrepreneurial business financially and leveraging yourself more effectively. Creating residual income, royalty income can also be eighth house monies. Mars is the Lord of the eclipse, the ruling planet of the eclipse, the one who owns the eclipse energy of Scorpio. He's up in your 10th house of career, and he is usually about change. So new directions, ending, severing, cutting, career, money. I'm going to say a lot of Libras are looking at a job and career change in the 6 months that follow this eclipse. And also, in your sky, your Venus ruled, Venus in the eclipse is in a lovely flow and a kind of harmonious energy to that Hygiea. It's going to help, maybe, air trining it, help you clean up how you are approaching your career and money stories through ninth house things. Maybe some of you might go back to school, take a class, learn something new in order to amplify or change the earnings. But it could even be a change of job or career that takes you to a foreign land. So keep that in mind if you are a Libra rising, especially. That could very well be one of those narratives unfolding in your sky. I think as well, sometimes the second house has to do with your voice, like literally speech. And, there might be something like voice, vocation, calling. Go deeper than just, I changed my job. The ninth house Venus at the time, the eclipse in the house of one's Dharma. Are you being asked to look more deeply at what calls you forth in life as a deeply meaningful path of earnings? Not so just much a change of earnings, but does it really resonate with you? Is it truly for you? Is it about what you want in life? Does it bring you joy? Of course. I think that's all I have to say for Libra. It's pretty simple. As I said, you're not really rattled by this eclipse cycle. It's a very more subtle energies for you in general. Scorpio, sun, moon, and rising sign. If you are a Scorpio, you are, of course, the star of the eclipses in Scorpio. Go back to May last year, 25 Scorpio. Go back to October, solar eclipse at 2 Scorpio. And now around 15 Scorpio, another eclipse. So know that Scorpio late degrees got most intensity in the spring, add 6 months last year, like May had 6 months. Then October last year, add 6 months, the 2-degree Scorpio people, and that range got the most intensity. And of course, now mid-range Scorpios, this go 15 degrees, 5 degrees on either side. It's your turn. So it's directly impacting you. It's going to be changing you. You are letting go of some sense of identity. You are no longer cleaving to a sense of identity that you may have had for a long time. It can be a challenge for your health. Take care of your body. Also, note eclipses through the house of the body. The ascendant is your body, will impact you. Now, of course, your sun is your dad and your mom is your moon. So if you have a sun around 15 Scorpio, it could be about father figures, a moon at 15 Scorpio, more about your mom and mother figures, and maybe a relationship to them as well. So this is, though, for the ascendant people, a note to file. You could be tired. You could be like feeling lethargic. You could feel there's some leaking vitality energies in the 6 months that follow. So proactively better your health. Proactively think of ways to be more healthy. That's all I can tell you. Mars lords over this eclipse, and he's coming from the 9th house of God, truth, wisdom, dharma, higher education, book publishing, foreign lands, visas, court matters. Now, all of those areas are going to be highlighted in the 6 months that follow, because that's where he's sitting at the eclipse, trining the eclipse, flowing to the eclipse. A great visa, change of home to a foreign land, maybe, who knows? It really depends. If your IC is in the 3rd house, floating in Capricorn, then it could be a home change for you. It can all, and it could connect to foreign lands. You could have a change in your academics, a movement towards a new kind of education, some momentum and excitement around publishing a book. I have a Scorpio girlfriend. She's got a book in the hopper. I bet she's going to do really well finding an agent in the 6 months that follow. This flow from Mars in the 9th house can also bring you into contact with a new direction in your spiritual faith and what you believe in life and what gives you a sense of meaning in your life. It can open up doors of new meaning and meaningfulness in life around purpose, true north, my original medicine, why am I here? You know, that kind of stuff. Now, Mars does rule the house of work, and he's involved in your eclipse. So your work and health are definitely on the highlight of that 6th house. Some of you may get a new pet as a result of this eclipse, or a pet for the first time. Yeah. Hygiea, the god of hygiene, goddess, is in your clean it up, heal it up, is in your 4th house. A cleaning of the ancestral line, a tidying up of your ancestral line stories, or your childhood wounds, cleaning up your mother relationship, cleaning up things to do with your home and where you live. What literally, do you have to get rid of mold? Is it a mold cleanup? Is it like just cleaning up, like hygiene in the home, but hygiene in the deeper home, your ancestral home, the nest from your childhood, cleaning up some of that stuff, healing that stuff, going back into it to heal. You have to feel it to heal it, is the old refrain. You may be doing some deep healing of things to do with your childhood and your ancestors and your parents. Mars is in the house of foreign lands, and there's Hygiea in the house of home and homeland. I don't know, some of you could be moving to a foreign country, maybe in the wake of the 6 months after this eclipse. The sun is involved across the way with unexpected surprises, and of course, Mercury, news and unexpected surprises with your significant other. But that also could be connecting to healing things in the home and in the ancestral line, things like that. The sun is the ruler, the owner of the real estate. That's Leo, which is your career space. And so some of you may be also having some shifts to do with career, identity, and home. It's a big deal, especially if you're a Scorpio near 15 degrees. You're really feeling this sort of all systems energy change as things in the pivoting Kendra homes of 4, 7, and 10 are activated. And the North Node cycles pushed you and propelled you to spend more time focusing on your marriage partner, your significant others, and those people in your life, including clients and audience. There's a lot of excitement over there. There's Uranus and Mercury in the North Node opposite the moon at the time of the eclipse. So big developments in that area of your life, propelling your attention, but also forcing you to heal some things that are 4th house related. Maybe you just like getting enough time at home and you need to heal that. Maybe you're so busy with clients, audience, and significant other, you need your home down time. That could be all I'm seeing here. Yeah. I'm looking at the sky. Yeah, I'm going to go with that. Moving on to the next sign, which is, of course, Sagittarius, sun, moon, and rising. Sagittarius, sun, moon, and rising, like the Libras, like the brain come online, like the Aries, like the Gemini, like the Libras. You are the last of the least affected signs. Sagittarius, you are only in a semi-sextile to the eclipses here. this eclipse, and therefore it's not that impactful, and it's very, very subtle. So it's in the subconscious, unconscious, hidden realm of your 12th house. You don't easily access it. It's under the trap door, under the sofa. It's really hard to get to. So it's dreams at night for sure, meditations, insights that come through therapy and trance hypnosis and stuff. Or, it's not just your everyday place. However, it is hospitals, it is insane asylums, it is jails, it is isolation. A full moon here is asking you to pay attention to that. There's a new vision, a light of eerie moonlight there, and you can be focused on that energy of the 12th over the 6 months that follow. South node here could mean some female lunar figure in the hospital in the 6 months that follow, or having a health challenge for Sag risings, especially sun and moon secondarily. As well, this is an eclipse that has Mars as a lunation lord, and he happens to be looking over at that moon from your 8th house of chunky money. This is your inheritances, your shared resources with your spouse, your mortgage monies and stuff like that. So Sagittarius are looking at those monies very particularly as a result of this eclipse and how it relates to foreign shores and foreign lands. So my Sag sun ex-husband may be buying a home in a foreign land, and this eclipse could be the unfoldment of Mars in the house of mortgages and finances and monies that you can apply towards a home in a foreign land. That's one example. Secrets can be spilled, and that definitely is Mars. He loves to spill secrets when he goes to the 8th house. Things that are hidden are coming to view. And where Mars is sitting is the temple of the moon. So it's the moon's house where he's going through. So he's like, okay, what secrets can we spill? What dark secrets are we telling here? So those things can come to light as well. The Hygiea wants to clean something up in a T square to the eclipse. And this is interesting because what wants to be cleaned up are sibling matters, aunts, uncles, cousins, local neighborhood, online world trips and travel, and skills-based learning. Now, you could take a class, but you'd be gritty tension to study a class to do with healing and health and medicine in the 6 months that follow. But there may be tension around that. You're going to do it, but you're like, some grit around doing that, really. The next thing I could say is you could heal a sibling relationship. If you are a Sag with an unhealed relationship to a sibling, the sky over the next 6 months is going to propel you to heal that relationship. I say that my Sag sun ex-husband probably could heal his relationship with his brother, because I don't think it's very good. And so my experience of that is that this is a healing for sibling relationships, but sometimes extended family as well, like the aunts, uncles, cousins. Healing things to do with your local environment, doing some healing in that zone of how you spend time in your local neighborhood and environment over the next 6 months, definitely. Or seeing healers in the local environment can be a play of the story of the next 6 months. There's a lot of focus on your 6th house of rentals, 6th house of things to do with, pets, things to do with working and making money through your work path. A lot of focus is there, draining you away from your sort of moksha liberation house. But South node eclipses and lunar eclipses in the house of spiritual moksha and liberation, the big Monty, I'm God, God is me, we are one. This is awakening energy. So some of you could harness this eclipse in the 6 months and follow for a sense of awakening. And lastly, a completion and end to self-undoing, and addiction habits and patterns. You go to the pub every day and drink too much alcohol, or every weekend you binge drink at the pub. I don't know. This can heal you of addictions, self-undoing habits and patterns, especially if it connects to local neighborhoods, or you might find a local healer to help you heal that in the 6 months that follow. Hopefully that's useful. Some of you Sag, sun, moon, and rising signs people. If you're in the live premiere and you have yet to hit the like button, please consider doing so. It's such a small act of kindness, and it helps the channel immensely grow. Let's move on to your Capricorn people. Cap, sun, moon, and rising, easy flow, sextiling you from the 11th house to the house of you. Eclipses offer up something positive, even as it brings you change in the 11th house matters. Go back to last May, go back to last October, and now this last eclipse here, May 5th, changes of friendship circles and groups of belonging, letting go of the old, releasing and completing. If you are Cap rising, you're letting go of a lot of your friendship circles and groups of belonging. It depends on your Cap rising degree, obviously. So this, is going to get the mid caps more strongly, whereas the early Cap rising people had most impact from October's eclipse, and in the May, the late degree Capricorns had the most impact. My ex-husband is a Cap rising. I like to use him as an example because he's one of the few Cap risings I know. And he's got his rising sign in the mid-range of Capricorn. He is going to probably be moving to Portugal, and he'll have to let go of his local Canadian friends and alliances. That's what that eclipse suggests. Full moon in the 11th house can be a completion of a way you gain money from a career path that you've been entertaining for a while. Can look like stepping away from a lot of money to less money, or moving away from making a lot of money, because 8th house monies can be retirement savings, and the sun is a part of the eclipse cycle from the 5th. It can also be a move towards less money from career and more savings and oriented stock investments, 401k, way of connecting to money over the 6 months that follow. An eclipse in the 11th house square Hygiea in the 2nd house, square the sun in the 5th house. It's called a T-square. What fiscal hygiene, Capricorns, are you being asked to look at? Sun, moon, especially rising, there's a quality of looking at your finances in a more healing way, sure, but hygiene, right? Hygiea, hygiene, hygienic financial earnings and money stories are being called out of the story. Now, of course, you could heal some self-worth, self-value stories around your capability to make money, your self-worth, your self-value over the 6 months that follow this eclipse. But a lot of you are going through a major death energy in that 2nd house. You're not going to be making money the same way you've ever made money before. And Hygiea is just having to heal something there. It could be really about how you perceive your voice, vocation, and calling. Or you could become a healer and earn money that way with Hygiea here in the next 6 months, but you may be resisting it. By the way, a particular meaning of the moon in the 11th in a full moon eclipse is an ending of a female friendship. That's simple. Or a lunar group of belonging, whatever that means to you. The mother's book club or something. Because this eclipse is involving, of course, the sun in the 5th house with Uranus and Mercury here. And this is lovers, this is children, this is fertility. The moon is across the way in the 11th. There's a bit of a sense that this could be a fertility story for a Cap rising sun or moon who's looking at having a baby. So you could have some breakthroughs in that area in the 6 months that follow. But also, this is your sexual life. Uranus is making you more experimental, adventurous, willing to go outside the line, color outside the lines of your natural sexual inclinations. Maybe that's something different for you is happening here, something new. North Node is expanding that energy as well of love, lover, romance, etc. But almost interesting is that Mars is in the house of commitment. Now, Mars in the commitment house can be gnarly because it could mean that Mars is in your 7th house of committed marriage and love. And the 6 months that follow could bake in a little bit of tension with that one that you're with. But that Mars is also sextiling the action plan in the 5th house. And that could suggest that there's a mitigation, that the tensions are not catastrophic. That Mars is trining the eclipse in the 11th. It can bring some kind of positive developments through business partnerships, clients and audience, and significant love relationships connected to a completion or a fullness in the great gains house. But, the 11th is your wishes and dreams and hopes for your life. And there's a full moon here coming to full light, full completion, but full light, full complete light. South Node, what dreams and wishes for your life that you thought were precious and dear are being surrendered and letting go of because of connections to Mars in your 7th, business partners, marriage partners, clients. But it's going to be for your best good. There's a flow there. Mars exalts you. He exalts your body. He makes you like extra special. Yay. You have a good relationship with Mars normally. Mars is a ruler of your 4th house. He's involved in a surrender, let go eclipse in your 11th house of friends and allies. Are some of you changing your home or homeland as a result of this eclipse? That's more likely to be true if your IC is floating in the 4th house in Aries and whole sign houses. But it's a derivative way of saying angular Mars squaring from the 7th to 4th house, ruler of the full moon. Maybe some of you let go of your friends because you change your home or homeland. As I said, my husband Fergus, ex-husband Fergus, is an example of that. All right, moving on to the next sign. Aquarius, sun, moon, and rising. I'm one of you. Am I recording? I am. We're going to finish up soon. Well, if you're an Aquarius sun, moon, or rising, this is a story. And hit the like button, guys, in the premiere. Thank you. I appreciate it. This is a story that's angular to you. You're one of those people getting a lot of the intensity, like all the fixed signs have. And so this one is about, again, a career surrender and letting go. I can't believe I'm teaching my Sky Reader course on the day of this eclipse. It opens the doors open for that. But what career path, what purpose, what visible reputational thing has been a part of your life that's starting last May, May, starting last May, then October, and now this eclipse in May, you're having to let go, right? Surrender, release, time to finish something, basically. Now, I don't think I'm going to stop being an astrologer, for example, but I mean, I'll finish up maybe seeing clients, or, maybe only see a few clients a year, because, I've done it for so much for the last 4 years or so. And then it's not, maybe almost 5. 2018, 18, 19, 21. Oh my gosh, longer than I thought, like 7 years or so. It's time to start something new for me. So you may find that you're letting go of something that you thought you wanted to do in a career space, energy, purpose space, and now it's time to surrender it and release it. If you have any planets in Scorpio near 15 degrees, it's going to really be a part of that sort of letting go energy. But if you're Aquarius rising near 15, like I am, this is one for you. If we're Aquarius rising, you are Aquarius rising, and you had this eclipse in October at 2 degrees, it was more for you. And if you're Aquarius rising around 26 degrees, it was more for you back in May last year. So this is the mid-range Aquarians, me, getting most intensity from this eclipse to let go of something to do with work and career and reputation. It's the end of something. And the 6 months that follow, you'll see what I mean. You really will. The sun is in the 4th house of the root, especially if your ICMC axis is floating in full sign houses through Taurus and the 10th house. It's really, really going to change maybe your home, where you live. So where you live is under the change energy, as well as the career path you're following in the 6 months that follow this eclipse. Now, as Aquarius, Hygiea is in the house of us, our body. We're cleaning up our health. We're cleaning up our personal hygiene. We're healing our identity. We're healing our body. She wants us to get down with that, but it's in a gritty tension to the career path we're on and the place we live, or our ancestors, or our family of origin, what we learned in those stories of growing up. I would say that Hygiea can be very much more than just physical health here. She could be asking us to really deeply heal ancestral stories and things that get in the way of our calling, purpose, and true direction in life. Now, with Hygiea, like the last time this eclipse cycle happened, I moved away from doing, that was 20 years ago. I moved countries, and I gave up a career path as a full-time psychic that I've been doing in the US before I moved back to my homeland in Canada. So I can say, okay, the last time these eclipses went through here for me, 2003-4 into early 2005, I let go of that part of my life that was a career as a full-time clairvoyant medium, psychic medium, talking to dad and all of that. And I surrendered it. And I also changed not just my home, but my homeland. And here I go again. So that's an example for you, Aquarius, of how, again, it could play out. Because Hygiea is about healing, if you wanted to identify as a healer, she's in the house of your identity, and Pluto is here at the eclipse at 0 degrees to transform your identity. If you never identified as I am a healer, and that's not a word you'd ever use to be that name, this is where Hygiea says, are you sure? But there's tension. It's like you got to own it. There's grit here. It squares the nodes of fate, and it squares the actual eclipse. Mars is the lord of the eclipse in your 6th house. He rules it. He's in the house of health and work and service and pets and leases. All of those things are up for change in the 6 months that follows the eclipse. Mars here will help you try to clean up the health story if you can, because Hygiea in the house of the body suggests the same thing, especially if it involves self-undoing addictions or bad habits. Mars exalts your 12th house, and those things all fall in there. Also, Mars is flowing from the 6th house to the eclipse, where you're letting go of some career path, but he's supporting it because you might find some new path of work and work routines, that support you to find something that you really much more prefer. And, he's in the temple of the moon, and the moon is eclipsing in your 10th. So there's a lot of work and career change of direction in the 6 months that follow. The sun is in your 4th house, making this thing happen. And the sun rules Leo in your chart, which is your 7th house. Some changes in your connection to your audience, your marketplace, business partnerships, and change regarding significant committed love stories unfolding over the 6 months that follow, and maybe quite possibly moving in with somebody that you're connected with in love and romance and commitment, especially given the eclipse bakes in Venus flowing to Hygiea and the house of sexuality and romance. Some of you may be looking at some really interesting love up change to do with love, sexuality, romance, and home, and where you live in the 6 months that follow this eclipse. Mars does rule your house of trips and travel. So you may be doing a lot more travel or connections to siblings in new ways in the 6 months that follows this eclipse. I'm talking about your 3rd house. All right, I hope that helps you, Aquarians, navigate that 6 months of the last eclipse in Scorpio. And now we're moving to first, but always first, Pisces. Now, Pisces, this is a soft touch eclipse cycle. This has been happening for you over the last year and a half because you are in a trine or flow to the eclipses happening in your 9th house. Foreign lands, foreign shores, book publishing, God, truth, wisdom, court matters, visas, higher education, book publishing. And as a Pisces rising, this area of your sky is giving you the last of 3 eclipses. Go back to May of 2020. And October, and this is the 3rd one. If you are a Pisces rising sun and moon and your rising degree was around 2 degrees or so, then this eclipse was influencing you the most from October to now. If you are a late degree Pisces, the eclipse way back May of last year at 6 months was giving you the most ruffle, changing your life's direction. But this eclipse this time is for the mid-range Pisces sun, moon, and rising. And this is impacting you the most this time. It's a change because it's a full moon, let go, surrender, South Node eclipse at the top of your 9th house. And this is about letting go of father figures, 3rd marriage stories coming to fullness or completions or fruitions, fullness, or something to do with education and foreign countries or higher courts and and spiritual traditions and God and awakening. But South Node is letting go. And so if you could let go of religion, spiritual belief, you could let go of a foreign country, or you could be completing something connected to foreign lands or educational paths. Now, this energy of the moon up here in this part of your sky can open up some spiritual enlightenment because South Node is spiritual attainment and surrender and spiritual awakening. And this is a house of God. So some of you Pisces have been going through spiritual awakening energies starting in 2022, beginning of the eclipse cycle in January through to this July. Now, I would also say because Mars is a ruler of the eclipse and he's in your 5th house of sexuality, romantic love, and children, these things are pulled into the story the 6 months that follow. You could be looking at themes of sexual healing, 3rd marriages, foreign lands, children, change of children, children moving out from the home, new relationships to children, trips and travel regarding visas, foreign lands. These are all very highlighted over the 6 months that follow this eclipse. If you have your own business, there's some entrepreneurial, freelance energies going on in your life. Mars is giving you some opportunities, maybe for a fullness and a new opportunity connected to work or endeavors of success financially, because Mars rules your earnings house, connected to opportunities that come in and from foreign shores. You try to find more joy and more truth in your life as a result of this eclipse over the 6 months that follow. Mars can bring blessed endings and relationships to do with children, like maybe a child finally leaves a nest and you're really happy. That could work that way. There's a square to Hygiea. Hygiea is about healing something, and this is a deep level of healing. It's 12th house energy where Hygiea sits. Hygiea could ask you to clean up your addictions, your self-undoing, some bad habits and patterns that you're engaging in life that don't serve you, especially with the sun as the Lord of the 6th house of sickness. So it's time to let go of those, release those. But the tension from Hygiea in the 12th house to the axis of the 9th and 3rd can to do with tension to do with foreign lands, travel, and education. If your floating IC is in the 3rd house, then some of you will move as a result of this eclipse. Okay. And if you are engaged in educational pursuits at all, whether it's local and or short distance, like skills based, or even just academic environments, there's a lot of tension here from Hygiea in the 12th house. Things may not be as smooth as you like. Yeah, not too sure what to say about that, you know. Now, Hygiea is in a house of hospitals. Eek. And Pluto's there. Eek. It's Saturn ruled. They're squaring this. I mean, Saturn is currently in Pisces. So, but you normally, these 12th house eclipses aren't about you, but you have to be careful for your health for sure. Pisces in the 6 months that follow. Alrighty. So that or a lunar figure in your life may encounter a health problem. That would be a mother or mother-like figure. You have activation of the sibling house from Mars, the exaltation lord, and from the sun in the other sibling house. So long story short, health challenges with a sibling in a hospital could be a story over the 6 months that follow. It doesn't necessarily have to be that, but it could be. I also, if anybody in your family, aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, and cousins that are close to you, that you have a real significant relationship with, some of those people could also end up with a health challenge in the 6 months that follow, you know, end up kind of in quotes in the hospital, you know, just in quotes, you know, doesn't mean they're actually in the hospital, but like, you know, they're not doing well. That's about it. I do feel like you guys are going to experience a lot of spiritual awakening with this as well. And if you want to see a healer to do healing for ancestral line healing, family constellation work, things to do with healing your past lives, you know, even a hypnotist could help. This could be really a wholesale clearing of those deeper layers of your being. And you could really level up spiritually to spiritual attainment from this last eclipse in Scorpio, because of Hygiea embedded in your 12th at the time of the eclipse. Well, thank you for listening to this, everyone who's still here in the live premiere. If you hung in there that long, I appreciate it. Please hit my like button. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to check my description box below. Check my Sky Reader class. We're starting on the eclipse. I have a lunar eclipse sale. I have an eclipse sale. There are a few spots left. I didn't close the doors. I think people are booking this into the summer, but these eclipse readings they cover a couple of years of stories. If you want to grab one of those Monday spots that are available for the eclipses, I'll put the link below. I didn't even highlight it in this video at the beginning because I may even just close the door for those, but I do have a few eclipse readings left. I'm opening my doors for readings with me if you like. In May, the doors will open for limited spots in June, July, and August. I'll likely be taking most of the summer off, but people are already booking me into September, October. So if you want to follow through on that, you can too. My soulmate James is crawling on the floor behind me. What are you doing on the floor? You make me pee my pants. Okay, sorry guys, I have to go to the bathroom and you know I'm laughing. Okay, so thank you for listening in the live premiere. Thank you for subscribing, all of that stuff. This should be going public sometime around April the 23rd or 4th. Thanks everyone. Ciao, ciao.